Hey, it's Captain Roger. Let's go for a walk. As we continue to walk through the book of Deuteronomy, we come to a passage about clean and unclean food. What's okay to eat and what's forbidden. There's one line in particular that always catches my attention. Do not cook a young goat in its mother's milk. This command, which is repeated 3 times in Scripture, by the way, it has a whole set of complex rules that grow up around it to help people remember to keep meat and dairy products separate. And in Orthodox kosher practice, there are separate sets of pans and dishes for cooking and serving these 2 food groups. And there are even rules that exist about how long you need to wait between eating meat and drinking a glass of milk or consuming a slice of cheese. Now, for a long time, there was a theory that this somehow related to the religious practices of the Canaanites. A lot of the rules God gave his people to follow at that time were directly related to the ways that they worshipped their false gods. So it seemed like a natural comparison. And early in the 20th century, an archaeologist turned up a 3,500-year-old tablet describing this Canaanite ritual for worshiping the chief of their gods, including a command that the experts at first thought said, cook a kid in milk. Unfortunately, later, on closer examination, it turned out the word they thought meant kid wasn't actually used here. There was also nothing about milk or cooking. Oops. A little mistranslation, apparently. Now, admittedly, this is kind of an obscure regulation, but no more so than the rest of the rules around kosher eating. As part of their walk with God, the Jewish people were expected to avoid pork, camels, rabbits, not to mention anything that lived in the water but didn't have fins or scales. Hey, you better put down that calamari. And while most birds were fine, there was a rather broad selection of them that weren't. But what was the point of this? Now, some people, including me at times in the past, claimed that there were health implications to what God allowed and disallowed his people to eat. But to be truthful, as we've learned more about food over the last few years, this hasn't seemed to be the case at all. Instead, it seems almost like this is a random mix of allowed animals. Almost like God had a few favorites he singled out for his people to enjoy. But with the added knowledge that if you ate the wrong things, it would defile you both spiritually and physically. So, what if there was no point? Or more specifically, what if the point just had nothing at all to do with the food that you were eating? See, God frequently said to the people who followed him, be holy, because I am holy. Remember that word holy, it just means set apart. What if the point was to see his people set apart? What if it wasn't the food that mattered, but the willingness to do what God asked them to do? This diet, the arbitrary seeming food selection, maybe that was the goal. Maybe God just wanted to see who would do what he asked. You know, like when a band puts weird things in their contracts, like only green M&Ms in the dressing areas. It's a test to see who's paying attention and who's just ignored the directions. Is that too weird? I don't think so. If the point is that God is God and these are his people, then there really is no better way to demonstrate that they're truly set apart than by having them do something that is done only to show that they're willing to follow where God leads. Isn't that what it means to walk with God after all? Speaking of which, I need to wrap this up. Grace and peace to you. I'll see you tomorrow.